Welcome, everyone. My name is Ashley Biggs. I am the Marketing and Outreach Librarian for the Maryland State Library for the Blind and Print Disabled. Today, I'm so excited to have one of my good friends back with us, Ellen Platt, and she brings along her good friend, Amy Young. For those who don't know, I have been working with Ellen for years and her coworker, Noel, and they have supported the library in many endeavors, including being our very first podcast guest. Ellen brings over 35 years of experience as a certified rehabilitation counselor and a certified professional aging life care manager. The Option Group, which is her practice, centers on comprehensive care management for individuals facing catastrophic injuries, chronic illness, and disabilities. She founded the Option Group to better serve the needs of vulnerable adults and youth while easing the burdens of caregivers and families. Ellen and her team develop individualized care plans, offer ongoing case coordination, and they advocate for a better quality of life for everyone. Their services cover Maryland, Delaware, and Pennsylvania. And she brings along Amy Young. Amy Young is a licensed occupational therapist with over 25 years of experience promoting safety and independence for individuals with disabilities. She founded Home Safe for Seniors to provide home safety and accessibility consulting, initially for older adults, but is now serving people of all ages. Amy specializes in identifying home modifications and adaptive equipment to help clients stay safely in their homes. She holds certifications as a certified aging in place specialist and has advanced training in home modifications and geriatrics. She is the owner and operator of Home Safe for Seniors. I'm excited to have them with us today to talk about maintaining independence in our home. As you know, they will be sharing their screen and we'll be describing things that are on the screen. We have 2 ASL interpreters today. Please note that they will be translating things for our guests who are in need of that interpretation. If you have any questions after the event, but you would like to share them privately, I will be sharing out an email with my contact information, and I will pass them along to my friends, Ellen and Amy. Without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to them.
Thank you, Ashley. That was very nice. Appreciate the introduction, and I appreciate everybody's time today. I'm Ellen Platt. I am an aging life care manager based in Hunt Valley, Maryland, and we provide services in Maryland, Delaware, Pennsylvania, and DC. We do private case management, which means families typically hire us to be an advocate for them. So we start by doing an assessment, understanding the situation, and then making recommendations to come up with a care plan that's going to be sustainable over time. We look at the emergency things right at first, things that maybe, a red flag concern that we need to address right away. And then we start thinking short term, what do we need to start planning for? And long term, what do we really need to come up with that's going to be sustainable over time in terms of finances, in terms of other supports that you may or may not have. And we just look at the situation. Everybody's very different, so it's a very fluid, dynamic process that looks at the individual situation and figure out what's the best next step for that person. So Amy, would you like to talk a little bit about occupational therapy in general?
Sure. Thanks, Ellen, and thanks, Ashley, for having me here. Occupational therapy is a profession that not a lot of people quite understand what we do because there's such a breadth and depth of it. But essentially, we look at anything that can be getting in the way of somebody doing a valued activity. So that could be a work activity, it could be a leisure activity, it could be a self-care activity, a household activity. And then we look at what their different abilities are and then where they are having issues, and we work on modifications and adaptive equipment for that. and just try to help people be as independent and safe as they can be within the situation that they find themselves.
I'm going to share my screen here to bring up a graphic. And so this is what we call the 8 core areas of expertise. And this is what we tend to focus on when we're working with families. So we are at the center of the hub of this wheel, with the individual receiving services and often family members or others who are trying to support them in their care village is what we call it. So we look kind of at the top of this, you see health and disability. So we look at what are the chronic health conditions, medications, insurances, and really get a good understanding of what their care needs are. How independent are they? Do they need assistance with activities of daily living? Things like bathing, dressing, toileting, mobility. And then there's instrumental activities of daily living that we also look at. And those are things that you need to do to live independently. Might not have to do them every day, or you can get assistance with them. But those are things like using a phone, using a computer, doing your laundry, getting to the grocery store, managing your medications and things like that. So we look at all of those aspects to see what the person's able to do independently and see where there are gaps. And we'll plug in those things to help support them so that they can do them independently or with assistance. So those areas that Ashley mentioned on the outside of the circle are all the different areas that as a care manager we would look into, and it would be important to know what those factors are as we're creating that care plan. So we look at a snapshot of the finances to make sure that the care plan that we're creating is going to be sustainable. We look at housing. Is it accessible? We look at family and psychosocial support. Who's available to assist when needed, or do we need to find other people who can be part of that team? We get to know the local resources very well, whether that's something like Meals on Wheels or a home care company, or somebody like Amy, who's an occupational therapist that can come in and do an assessment, or possibly an attorney to kind of put together our planning documents. So there's lots and lots of local resources, and what we want to do is tap into those to help people remain out in the community as much as possible and be independent. We are often advocates. When you're not feeling well or you're in the hospital, it's really hard to be an advocate for yourself. There's a lot of confusing information coming at you and lots of people coming in and out of your room, and it's hard to keep track of all the details and really know how do I even start, or what kind of decisions should I be making. So as an advocate, we can help guide those decisions, provide education and information so that you're not making a knee-jerk reaction about your care, that you're really making an informed decision. We look at the legal aspects. Do you have power of attorney documents in place? So somebody who's able to make either medical or financial decisions for you if you're not in a position to do that, or somebody who can help guide with those decisions as needed. And then a lot of times there are crisis intervention needs that we have as care managers, because we often get a call when there's been some type of catalyst, some type of medical event or something that that creates sort of an urgency to get help right away. So these are kind of all the areas that we're looking at when we're helping families or individuals decide what's the best next step for me and my given situation. So as care managers, we're creating this care scenario, and we often implement it. We're putting things in place and helping families get that care village underneath them so that they're, going about their daily business and supported in the way that they need to be supported. We want to look at things like meals and medications, getting to and from doctor's appointments, possibly to and from work. We may need to coordinate some of those things, and we're looking at all the different aspects of what's important for you as the individual receiving services. We want to make it so you can be as independent. If you're working, you're reliably have transportation getting to and from work. If you need to get to a doctor's appointment, or you want somebody to be there as your advocate, or to be another set of eyes and ears, to be able to hear what the doctor's saying, understand the recommendations, put it into context, or just have another person to kind of process what's the physician is saying. We also often look at modifications to the environment where the person is living, and Amy's going to talk a whole lot about that in a minute, because that's really her expertise, where she's looking at the environment and trying to figure out what needs to be put into place. We may recommend things like Be My Eyes. You may have heard of that. It's an app that people who are visually impaired or low vision can use, to where people who are not visually impaired or possibly AI can come through the app and help you figure out what you're trying to figure out. So an example I can give, you might be at a vending machine and you can't see the price and you can't see where the items are located or what button to push. And you can go onto this app and there can be a sighted person on the other end of the video who can look at that very machine with you and help you identify which is the choice that you want to make. Very practical things. And also things like accessible pharmacy. So if you're trying to manage your medication and you're not sure which bottle you have in your hand or what dosage you have, there are things like medication bottles that actually speak what the dosages are, what the medication is, who prescribed it, when you should be taking it. So there's some very practical things that allow you to be really independent. And then I'm going to turn it over at this point to Amy, who has a lot of pointers of how do we remain really independent within the home.
Thanks, Ellen. So what I'm going to mainly talk about today is where OT and case management can come in with people with visual impairments. And I'm going to focus on that specifically. If you have some level of blindness or somebody with a visual impairment lives with you, modifying the home makes it safer to live in and easier to navigate so you can perform your valued daily activities. The case manager is a great partner for an occupational therapist because OTs are specialists in determining how to maximize independence and safety in the home. And case managers can assist with obtaining the recommended equipment and modifications and coordinating all of the things that the OT has recommended. I'm part of a nationwide network of occupational therapists that specialize in home modifications. So we're all over the country, and it's called the Home Modification Occupational Therapy Alliance. And we can partner with case managers to really enact meaningful change in people's lives. I'm going to talk a little bit about some specific ways to modify the home. How you modify your home depends on the degree of impairment. For low vision, the main principles that you want to keep in mind for modifications are utilizing color and contrast, improving lighting, reducing clutter, and providing stable balance support surfaces. Also, for people with low vision and people even that have total blindness, tactile cues and adaptive devices can be greatly beneficial to increasing your independence and safety. So I'm first going to go over how color, contrast, and light affect decisions with home modification for those with low vision. And then I'm going to give some recommendations for each area of the home where case managers and OTs can work together to enable people with different degrees of visual impairments to increase their safety and independence. So first we're going to talk about color and contrast. For low vision, color and contrast are very important to use throughout the house to make important things stand out. Solid, bright colors, such as red, orange, and yellow, are generally the easiest to see with low vision because of their ability to reflect light. And you want to place light-colored objects against darker backgrounds. So, for example, a white sheet of paper is more visible against a brown desktop or a dark mat. And the same principle, place dark objects against lighter backgrounds. So a dark chair will stand out better against a white or a cream-colored wall. And then lighting is really, really, really important, especially if you're trying to read. What you want to do, there are a couple different kinds of lighting. There are lots of different kinds of lighting, but you want to utilize general lighting to provide illumination through each room, coupled with additional task lighting near your activity areas. So good general lighting will help eliminate shadows, and task lighting will provide ample lighting for your activity. A case manager can assist with locating a reputable electrician if you need to find one to redo some of the wiring or put in a different light. Some of them are battery operated, some of them, so it just would depend on what the recommendations are. The big piece is eliminating glare. Glare is a big obstacle for people with low vision. So you want to make sure that your general lighting is bright enough and even and doesn't cause glare. Task lighting can vary from person to person depending on their light sensitivity. So you can use dimmer systems to accommodate varying light needs, but you want to keep some background light on when you're using task lighting to reduce the glare and eye fatigue. Sunlight, natural light, provides great light, but it can cause problems with glare and shadows. So a way to combat that is using vertical blinds instead of horizontal blinds, because vertical blinds make it easier to control light levels, and they can help you change the direction of light coming into a room. And you can also use roller shades to, control the amount of light. A sheer curtain can make it a little softer. A good idea is replacing any kind of incandescent or fluorescent lights with LED lights. Incandescent lights can cause shadows, and fluorescent lights can flicker. So LEDs last a long time. They're very energy efficient. You can get them in all kinds of shapes and colors, and you can dim them. And they also make smart bulbs that are very useful because they can be voice activated through smart home devices. So again, case management can help you navigate how to handle a smart home device. And on a side note, when reading, if one eye sees better than the other eye, you want to position the task light on the side of the eye that sees better and adjust the light to make sure there are no shadows or reflections on the page. So those are just some general ideas about lighting and color and contrast that are applicable to the whole house. But I'm going to get into some specific areas of the home to give you some ideas of helpful modifications that'll increase your safety and independence. And then you'll be able to see where partnership with a case manager is useful for implementing these strategies, because they have a variety of resources, and they're really a good person to have on the case to be able to implement the different recommendations from an occupational therapist. So in general, just some general safety tips. Clutter. Remove clutter from walkways and hallways because they can be trip hazards. Keep furniture, keep things you use frequently in consistent locations. Make sure that you secure the rugs and keep the cords out of the pathways. And, you want to use raised or brightly colored markings on frequently used items. You can put those on door locks, remote controls, all kinds of things. There's all kinds of different equipment for that. So those are just some general home safety things. At the entrances, external lighting is very, very important at night because you need safe and navigable access when you're leaving the house and returning as well. So you want lights over the door, you want them on any external steps and on the pathway. They make light bulbs that automatically illuminate from dusk to dawn. And those are helpful because you don't have to remember to turn the light on before you leave. If you come back and it's dark, it'll already be on for you. As far as tactile things go, a rubber mat with texture can help identify an entryway by feel. You step on it and you can know that you're near the entryway. Door frames with contrasting colors can be helpful. Steps and stairways. Those can be a little challenging for people with visual issues. So you want to make sure that you brightly light the stairways, and you want to mark the leading edge of the steps. That can either be done with bright paint, it can be done with brightly colored textured tape, or you can put stair nosings on there that are a contrasting color to the floor. It's good to have bilateral handrails for balance assistance, just to have that extra support for going up and down. And those can be painted in a bright color that contrasts with the walls and the flooring, just to make them a little easier to find. And again, that's where the case manager can come in and help you with locating resources and contractors to get the lighting put in, the railings, things like that. So they're really useful as far as being able to help gather all the things that you might need. What's a useful modification for people that have total blindness is putting some kind of tactile mark like textured tape or a rubber band or something at the top of the handrail and at the bottom of the handrail on the staircase, just to give you a tactile clue that it's about to end. That's a useful thing. Okay, the kitchen. Very important to have anti-scald devices and using a liquid level indicator for pouring. Again, there are lots of equipment out there for those things, but you need to make sure that when you're dealing with boiling water that you have some type of device to help you be able to know and not burn yourself. Frequently used items, use tactile markers, large print. A really good modification that's easy to do is to get a reversible black and white cutting board for contrast. So for example, onions and potatoes and yellow squash will show up clearly on the black side, and then tomatoes and green vegetables will show up better on the white side. So it just provides a greater contrast to keep you a little safer. You know, as far as the stove, oven, and microwave go, you can use brightly colored raised marking dots on those, on the buttons and the controls you use the most to help you adjust them easier. But you can consider appliances now that have voice output or have large print buttons. I mean, there are lots of products available. And then again, you know, the case manager can help with that. Bedrooms. Your bedside light, you want that to be either like voice or touch activated so that it's easy to operate. Motion sensor night lights along the pathways are really good to have at night, just to light your way so that they can help you, avoid any kind of hazards. And they make motion sensor night lights that are both plug-ins, and if you don't have an outlet in the hallway, they make them that stick on as well. And they're battery operated. Lights in the closet are helpful to be able to see a little better, and maybe sometimes it's hard to differentiate colors, so the more light you have, the better. Sometimes a small bed rail attached near the head of the bed between the mattress and the box spring can help give you additional support for transfers and bed mobility, and it'll give you a tactile cue at the edge of the bed too. But it should have a safety strap that secures it to the bed frame on the opposite side of the bed so it doesn't come out. And most of these rails have the added benefit, which is awesome. They have a bed caddy on them, so they'll hold your eyeglasses or tissues or needed, remote controls, things like that. So they're very handy to you and you know where they are. The bathroom. The bathroom is a place where OTs kind of specialize because there are a lot of issues in there that people run into problems with. For low vision, again, contrast is key. So a white toilet seat, you can replace that with a brightly colored toilet seat that contrasts with the walls and the fixtures so that you can find it a little easier. You want to mark hot water settings with, tactile or color indicators. Make sure all the mats are non-skid, both inside the tub and outside the tub. Contrasting fixtures, contrasting towels, all those sorts of things help you be able to locate things in the bathroom. And grab bars. Grab bars are very important, and they can be in contrasting colors. So if you have white tile, don't get a white grab bar. Get something that's a different contrasting color that you can see. And those should be in the shower and also near the toilet. But that's where an occupational therapist can really help you determine the best location, because everybody's different and everybody has different techniques for, getting in and out of the shower and for how they manage getting on and off the toilet. So, that needs to be individualized to how that person uses the area. And then, an OT can determine that, and then the case manager can assist with the process after that. So the installation process, getting somebody to come in that's reputable to do that. So, in general, each person is an individual. Each person has a different level of visual impairment. They have different needs as far as what they value and what they want to be able to do in their house. So an occupational therapist is really the best one that's suited to determine all the different interventions that can possibly increase your safety and independence doing the things that you most value. And this is where a case manager provides a vital service, because they can refer an occupational therapist that specializes in home modifications, and then they can assist with procuring the recommended adaptations and continue to facilitate the client's success in their home environment. So we're just one piece of the puzzle for case management. We're an important piece, but I think, the case manager sort of is the one that can coordinate everything and make it actionable. So that's it in a nutshell as far as what OT, just some general recommendations. There are thousands more, but that just is a good general overview as far as what some types of things that OT looks at. Send it back to Ellen if she wants to follow up any more with case management issues related to OT.
Yeah, thank you, Amy. So we love our occupational therapists. We work with them very closely when we're trying to figure out how to make it safe, functional in a home with somebody that's low vision or no vision. Amy had some great suggestions for some very, very practical, easy, simple, inexpensive modifications. Things as simple as a rubber band at the end of a railing, or contrasting paint just to have that contrast of colors, using Velcro or tactile cues. Some of those are very inexpensive, something you can do often yourself, or just a friend or somebody who can help with that. Then there are other things that she mentioned, maybe some small purchases that might be either equipment or an appliance that is voice activated or motion activated or touch activated, that makes it simpler and easier for you. And then there's lots of modifications. They range from very inexpensive to very expensive if you're talking about a big bathroom modification where you're completely overhauling it, or possibly the kitchen. But there's a lot of places in between, and a lot that are still very small modifications that make a big difference in terms of functionality. And so with case management, what we do is we interface with the occupational therapy, understand what the recommendations are, and then figure out what do we need to do to implement those recommendations. And it might be identifying some MHIC, so Maryland Home Improvement Contractor, or each state has a certification for contractor, so that we know that they're reputable, and we would get multiple estimates and be able to help you guide you with the decisions and figure out who you want and how you want them to do it and when you want them to do it, and we can get that implemented. There also are things that case managers can do to find possible funding. There are some state and county grants to help modify a home for somebody that's renting, because we want to increase the number of accessible housing units available. So if the landlord agrees to not ever take out that modification, if the person decides to leave, then the county or the state might fund the actual modification. So it may not be out-of-pocket cost for you, or very minimal. And then there's some state funding for people who own their home, and it allows them to get funding to actually make that modification in a home that they own. So care managers can help with finding those resources, finding those modifications, coordinating the care or the recommendations with the occupational therapist, as well as the contractor who may be coming in to make those changes. So at that, we're going to pass it back to Ashley.
Wonderful. This was a lot of information. And so one thing I will be doing is providing a copy of the transcript, so that individuals who would like to read through it again can access the information and reference it. And a copy of this presentation will be placed on our YouTube channel.